Hello and welcome to the agenda. I am Ajay Kaul. In this program today we will be discussing about India's economic health. The year 2020 continues to be that of bad news. The latest in the series is the huge drop in GDP number, that is minus 23.9%. The drop in GDP was expected but the magnitude has come as a shock. The economic indicators are clearly worrying, more so because corona cases continue to rise, thus hampering full-scale revival of the economic activity. The government has announced economic packages and the RBI has also taken certain measures to revive the economy. Are these measures enough? Are these steps resulting in what these were intended for? We will discuss such questions in the agenda today with two experts on economy, Professor Arun Kumar and Dr. Ravi Singh. But before we start the conversation, let us have a look at this small report.
The country's economic health is in very poor condition. This became clear from the latest GDP figure of minus 23.9%, which is said to be the biggest drop ever. Almost all sectors are down and bleeding. Crores of people have lost livelihood and unemployment rate is increasing sharply. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman recently said that the country's economy is in such a bad shape because of the act of God. Her statement has been criticized by the opposition and others, who are alleging failure on part of the government. The opposition, while stepping up attack, is saying that the government is not able to comprehend the gravity of the crisis and is incapable of dealing with it. The government, on its part, has announced certain measures, including a package of Rs 20 lakh crore to revive the economy. The Reserve Bank of India has also taken certain steps, but there is no indication yet to show that these measures are translating into action. The demand and the consumption has contracted badly. Moreover, the continuous rapid rise in the coronavirus cases is preventing full revival of economic activity. This is making the situation worse and thus the outlook can't be positive in the near future. Therefore, drastic steps are needed to ensure that further contraction of economy is prevented and growth is revived. Bureau Report.
Now let's welcome our special guests, Professor Arun Kumar and Dr. Ravi Singh. Welcome to the program, sir. My first question is to Professor Arun Kumar. So how do you see the GDP figures? These were expected, but the magnitude is huge, isn't it?
Actually I'm surprised that it's not worse because, you see, the entire economy had frozen in April and very little revival was there in May. So I was expecting a much sharper drop, in the economy. Except for essential production in April and early May, nothing else was working. And if you look at the document, the press release that has come with the document for the NSO, itself says that data was not available fully and therefore alternate numbers are being used, like for instance the GST number and so on. Now that does not give the full picture because the corporate sector results only of the good companies have come and the other companies, they've been allowed till September to release their result. So only the results of the better performing companies, like for instance in the pharma sector, in the FMCG sector, in some of the IT sectors and Reliance, only these have come, which are doing well. When the full data comes, I think, the NSO document says they'll revise the figures again. The second thing is that it also admits that the unorganized sector data is not there. So it is assumed that the unorganized sector is doing at the same rate as the organized sector, which is not true because the unorganized sector got hit much harder. In the unorganized sector, you have agriculture as a major component which could perform, but even agriculture, the reports were that the vegetable and fruit, the perishables, they were, performing very badly and the farmers did not harvest the crop and they allowed it to rot. And the data from Azadpur Mandi is that only half the fruits and vegetables were coming compared to last year at the same time. And then, you have reports that milk production suffered and the poultry production, eggs because, the midday meal scheme stopped. So there's a large part of the agriculture sector also which suffered. Floriculture also suffered because, we could not send these, flowers to Europe or, to the urban markets. So all told, even though agriculture, Rabi crop was good, but even agriculture did not perform so well. And these data will be revised very soon. So, the performance actually, according to me, must be around minus 40%, not minus 23.9%.
So this is quarter one actually. So what is your prediction for the
Yes.
quarter two, if this continues?
Quarter two will also be rather poor because, even though from minus 75% is now up to minus 50%, but still, it's considerably worse than what it was last year, especially in the services sector. So you have, for instance, airlines and hotels and restaurants and, many other services like that, For instance, Indian Railways, instead of running 14,000 passenger trains, is only running about 500 passenger trains. So it's not even at 5% of the passenger trains that were being run, even though freight traffic has been good. But, railways are also not running fully. Your bus services, your tourism, and then the related industries, with airlines and related industries with hotels and so on, they are also not performing very well in spite of the unlock that has taken place. And that is because services require people to be close to each other. Yeah. And that is where the problem is that, physical distancing, when you have, then many services cannot perform like they were performing earlier. Even in the medical field, even though with the COVID related, there was an increase in the work, but all other diseases, the work in the OPDs, etc.,
right,
is greatly reduced.
Yeah.
So even the medical field, I think there'll be a drop. Education field also, large number of schools and colleges, the private ones, they had closed down. So you have large swaths of the economy where recovery has not yet taken place. So even second quarter, I think, will be considerably down. So this whole year, I think the growth will be very, very negative.
So let me turn to Dr. Ravi Singh. Dr. Ravi Singh, you heard the Professor Arun Kumar is saying that all indicators have not come. So it is going to be worse. What is your view?
Obviously the numbers are disappointing, but the sharp fall in the first quarter GDP as expected on the line, as around the 70 to 80% of the economy was under lockdown in the month of April and May due to the corona pandemic. The production side was affected due to the deep correction in manufacturing, construction, trade, import, export, mining, and pharma, FMCG, and also is the transport sector. So while the expenditure was clearly pushed to the lower due to the contraction in consumption and investments, however, the positive agriculture growth has been gives us some relief of the economy. As we know, that we can see the some through the past GDP numbers, economy was already given the sign of recession, and corona pandemic has also increased the depression, and also the high volatility in equity market and high prices of gold and silver is showing nothing but the fear of investor due to the global recession by the corona pandemic. So, and the fear is day by day increase, making the economy more vulnerable. Not only the India, most of the economies in the world like US, China, Europe are suffering from the same recession.
No, Dr. Ravi Singh, I may point out because sometime back in I think April, IMF had predicted that India will have 1.9% growth, but that was basically not correct, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, because that point of time nobody has idea about the corona pandemic. But
no, at that I may interrupt you. At that time, IMF projected a recession for all over the world, but only India it says 1.9 positive, and I think China at 2.4 or something, if I am not wrong.
Yeah, definitely, you are right, absolutely right. Because at that point of time, India is evaluating itself, and they are day by day their activity are increasing, and the FII's investment is going on. So that point of time the situation is different, and now the situation is totally different. That is the reason that nobody can predict that number. So now overall, after Corona pandemic, the situation is totally different.
Okay, let me turn to Professor Arun Kumar. Professor Kumar, do you think that government needs to do much more than what it is doing? It has announced 20 lakh crore rupees package, but I don't think it's translating into action right now. And above that, the finance minister says that it is an act of God for which he has been facing criticism. How do you see that?
So, I mean, pandemic is certainly because of a virus, which has mutated and attacked the human body. It has jumped from animals to humans, as is being said. But the point is, lockdown could have been better managed, and, before easing the lockdown, we needed a lot of testing and contact tracing so that, the pandemic does not flare up, and that's what's happened. As we have eased the lockdown, the pandemic is flared, and now we are having the largest number of cases in the world every day, and we'll soon have the largest number of cases in the world. And this is just the first round, the second round may begin to attack after October as the weather cools down, as happened in the earlier pandemics. So there's a lot of uncertainty in the situation. And also because you see the vaccine, even if it comes by November, it will take 2 years to vaccinate everybody. And therefore, our Indian country and the economy will continue to suffer as a result of this pandemic. Now, what could the government have done? Out of the 20 lakh crore, only 2 lakh crore is coming from the budget for the poor people. Whereas about 20 crore people lost employment and about 80 crore people suffered, from poverty. So you needed to have a package about 15-16 lakh crores of rupees for giving support to the poor people, the bottom 80% of the income ladder. Instead, the government has only gone in for loans and so on. Now, as you know, if businesses are performing poorly or they're not investing, then they don't need credit. So RBI is telling the banks that you loan out more to businesses, but the banks are saying that businesses are not coming forward to take loan. And that is clear because, if the output is down 50%, 60%, then why would they, take credit at the same rate as earlier? So you have an excess liquidity, but the government needs to now redo its budget because the budget was created with a 10% growth target. But now if you have minus 40%, then there's a 50% turnaround in the revenue. So GST collections are down, income tax collections will be down, corporate tax collections will be down. And therefore, the government needs to redo the budget and cut all wasteful expenditure so that it can have enough money to put purchasing power into the hands of the poor people. So you need to increase the money for the Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. Only 1 lakh crore is being given, whereas you should give 4 to 5 lakh crores. And then, to the farming community, you need to give greater funds. And then to the cottage sector, which is 6 crore units, whose working capital has got exhausted. So if you have to restart, then you need working capital. So, 4-5 lakh crores may be required to be given to these 6 crore units. And then finally, an urban guarantee scheme for employment is also required so that the urban poor who have lost employment, they also begin to get some funds. So all this, will require government to raise a lot of money. On the one hand, its revenues are down. On the other hand, additional expenditures are required. So this gap will be about 20 to 30 lakh crores of rupees, which the government would have to raise funds from the banks, for instance, the 8 lakh crores, the surplus, from the RBI and from the wealthy through COVID bonds. Then only will it be able to spend and, increase demand in the economy.
Yeah, the key, as you rightly said, the key is to give money, to the people and mostly to the vulnerable sections. But do you suggest that the government, by resorting to loan schemes and other things, have taken the wrong path or not the the right path?
Yes. So, say they have counted RBI giving extra, liquidity through CRR cut and, giving borrowing windows, but when the businesses are down, then they don't need credit, they won't take credit. And the other component of, the package was to announce changes in
structural changes,
agriculture laws, etc. But those are all long-term measures. Those are not short-term, whereas you need to increase demand in the short term, for which you need to put in the purchasing power into the hands of the poor people so that then they can start buying. Once they start buying more, then industry's capacity utilization will go up and then only investment will go up. Otherwise, you see, even in October last, when the RBI report came, they were saying capacity utilization in industry is down to 70%. And because of lockdown, it went down to even 0% in hotel industry, airlines industry, etc. and in many other industries it was down to 10-20%. So capacity utilization has to go up before investment begins, and then only the investors' confidence will come. At the moment, investor confidence is down, consumer sentiment is down. So people who are having the money, they're not buying discretionary items. Their demand is low. But you have some sectors which will do well. For instance, people want to have personalized vehicles instead of use public transport. So automobile sector is seeing a boost at the moment. But that I don't think will last, because that will also go down.
That is temporary, I guess.
One-time purchases take place. But there are other sectors also where there will be one-time, pent-up demand. But as that goes, the economy will again be down. So in June you had some increase in demand. July you had increase in demand. And then again from July, August, there's some tapering off because one-time demand was catered to.
Okay, Dr. Ravi Singh, consumption is down, demand is down, so that is hampering the revival of economic activity. What is your view?
Sir, I'm very much positive, and I hope in next quarter you can see some upside momentum in our GDP. Because why I'm saying this? Because with the economy unlocking the last few months, most of the economy activity has started, and the improvement in the number may be reflected into the next GDP. As we all know, the growth of auto sector is an important indicator of economy's health, and there has been increased the sales figure in the major automobiles companies like Maruti, Hyundai, Tata Motors, and Mahindra. Like recent releasing auto data shows the sale of mid and small segment vehicles have been increased after the lockdown, and also the sales of tractor is growing, and agricultural machinery is growing since last few months, increasing. So the reason of positive agriculture data, and I think our PM motive and initiative to revival the economy is very clear, but the way of economy measure and in the implementation applicable are not as up to the mark or satisfactory. It is very important for the consumer sentiment and consumer spending to improve, so the economy can bounce back. Increasing infrastructure investment, demand boosting measures, and job creations are the much required for the point for the recovery, I think.
Okay, so Professor Kumar, if we talk in the context of government taking the lead in reviving the economic activity, I feel that undertaking huge infrastructure projects or construction projects could be one of those, as you mentioned, urban employment schemes, rural employment schemes. Do you think these are the ways the government should adopt so that there could be quicker revival?
So, government expenditure is needed, even if it is done on infrastructure. Social infrastructure is very employment intensive. So, expenditure on education, health, and in rural infrastructure. But you see, many big infrastructure projects like roads and so on, now they are not very labor intensive. A lot of machines are used. Earlier, when you saw road construction project, you'd see hundreds of people working. Now you see big machines, hardly 5-10 people are using it. So I think what we need to do is, really put purchasing power at the lower end of the economy, where a lot of unemployment has been generated and where purchasing power has been lost. And the middle class, also has lost employment. For instance, CMI data says 18.9 million organized sector people have lost job. Not only they have lost job, but a lot of the people in the organized sector have had salary cuts. So even though, for instance, the employment data shows that employment has recovered, but work has not recovered. So if you're an Ola driver or a Uber driver, you say that you're employed, but you're not working because the work is not available. Or if you are in a factory, which was closed, you were employed, but the work was not taking place, and the incomes were being cut, across the board in the organized sector. So therefore, there's a need to push in purchasing power into the hands of the lower classes and the middle classes. So unless you do that, the demand will not revive. And even then, I think the discretionary demand is not going to revive very quickly because of the uncertainty. And a lot of young people losing jobs, families would be very worried, that how would their income take place. So, we need to provide a certain degree of certainty in the economy. And the government is the only one that can do that, because markets cannot do it. markets will respond only to what is the situation on the ground, what is the expectation.
Right.
So, but for the stock market and a few sectors like pharma and so on, most sectors will not be reviving, and especially, as I said, the services sector, which is 55% of the GDP, there because of physical distancing being difficult, the revival of those sectors will be very, very difficult. Another point that's important to note is that the economy is not going to return back to January 2020. There'll be a new normal. So the way the production will take place with physical distancing, the way travel will take place, tourism will take place, the way education will be all very different from what it was in the past. So with so much uncertainty, it's very difficult to predict, the revival of the economy and how quickly the economy will go up. So the economy is not like a rubber ball which you throw to the ground and it revives, it bounces back into your hand. When the economy goes down, people lose employment, consumption goes down, businesses close down, So therefore, the expectations don't change very quickly when the economy goes down and when the economy comes up. So I expect a very shallow U-shaped recovery over 1 or 2 years, not immediately.
Professor Kumar, as you just mentioned, that purchasing power has dropped substantially and people are not going for tertiary or discretionary purchases because they don't have the money. I mean, that in money hand. So, putting a way of I have been arguing is like putting money into the hands of people is like reducing GST or maybe giving an IT waiver for this year. I know government revenues have dropped, but maybe this is the way of maybe giving purchasing power to the people. What do you say on that?
So, it's possible that you can cut your indirect taxes and cheapen them. But you see, for a lot of goods, the discretionary demand is not going to revive. Because, why discretionary demand is not reviving is because people are uncertain. That uncertainty is not going to go away if you cut prices. So I would say that at this point, don't cut taxes, but give purchasing power in the hands of people. For instance, if you cut the GST and then, you lose tax revenue and the demand doesn't revive for discretionary items, then it's not going to work.
But sir, the issue is... But sir, the issue is how do you give purchasing power to the people when, as you mentioned, people have lost jobs, salaries have been cut, and there is no economic activity. How do you give money, purchasing power to the people? That is the key.
So the government will have to borrow money and borrow from the banks, 8 lakh crores, and borrow from the wealthy people, borrow from RBI and give it to the people who have lost employment, because they will then start buying essentials, and a lot of the essentials will then mean that industry will start functioning better. And when industry starts functioning better, production will take place, capacity utilization will increase. If you just cut GST and the demand for those items does not increase, then you are back to square one and your deficit would have risen. Similarly, if you give income tax cut, that is only to 3% of the population. As the Prime Minister said, only 15 million people are effective taxpayers. So even if you cut the tax for 15 million, the problem is that they are not going to suddenly start consuming more. So therefore, it's better to give purchasing power by, borrowing, etc., and giving it to the middle class and the lower classes. Like, in America and Europe, many of the organized sector industries have been told that you don't fire workers. We will give you the salary of the workers, 80% or 70% of the salary of the workers so that they don't lose their purchasing power. So something similar could be done here for the middle classes and for the poor people also.
That's a good idea. In fact, Dr. Ravi Singh, how do you see this idea? Government borrowing rather than, in fact, government is telling state governments to borrow money. So I think this is a good idea if central government itself borrows money from. How do you see that?
Yeah, definitely there is one solution. But what I feel that whenever there is an economic depression, there is a more needed to spending the measures. So confidence among the customers or consumers may develop. Secondly, to contain the rising inflation is also must. In the few months, we have seen the steep increase the petrol and diesel prices, which is affected to the inflation. So the government should immediately take the measure contain these rising, especially when the international crude prices are $42 per barrel. If you convert into in Indian rupees, approximately around the 19 rupees per liter, excluding the taxes. So the lot of scope, the improving petrol and petrol prices to reduce the taxes, which will help the decreasing the transport cost, using the supplying of the daily essentials, and ultimately the inflation will decrease. Lower petrol and diesel prices is also impact the psychology of general public. The government is taking positive measure to then help them. In this way, customer confidence increase, which further improve the economy. And also, the effect of 20 lakh crore package is not as per the expectation of the government, as it is mainly through the loan window. And in this scenario, public is not confident about the growth. Hence, they are avoiding the new liability and spending. That's why surviving is that the pandemic improves the consumer confidence is the most needed measure revival for the economy. I hope so.
But I'm not sure whether the banks even are ready to give credit, because I think they are not sure about guarantee of return. That's, I think, also an issue, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely there is an issue, because earlier we have seen that there is a NPA, gross NPA is a 10 lakh crore, and after that the government will have taken the action and immediately they give the subsidy. But I feel moreover the confidence building for the consumer, that is the main motive in this point of time in the corona pandemic. So if consumer are ready to spend, then I think economy will revive. That is the big challenge.
So, Professor Kumar, if I ask you the same question, if we talk about lending and credits, I am not sure whether banks are ready to give credits also, because they are not sure about return. Particularly if you consider the NPA situation, businesses have collapsed.
Yes.
So I am not sure whether they are even ready to give credit also.
No, so the government has given sovereign guarantee up to 3 lakh crore if they lend to the MSME sector, and similar things can be done. But you see, it's only postponing the problem, because when many companies have been closed and they have been down, sales are down, so they're incurring losses, and therefore when they start reopening and then they have to repay the credit, at that point the problem will come. So the problem is not fully resolved at the moment, and the banks are worried about the NPAs rising. That's why even if they lend, they'll lend very carefully, and they'll lend only to the companies which are not going to fail or collapse. So you are right that simply by giving credit, the problem is not going to be resolved at the moment. And I think the banks will have to be very careful. The government has to pick up the burden. If there are failures, and they'll have to start seeing that the failures of businesses are reduced. Otherwise, if businesses begin to fail, then employment will not revive. And if employment doesn't revive, there will be a huge problem in the economy. So the government will have to do something about seeing that businesses don't fail and banks don't fail. That step, I think, has not yet been taken. I think, and that step has to be taken along with the RBI, because RBI will have to do something about the IBA, the bankruptcy code, how to tackle it in the given situation where the pandemic has led to a lot of businesses coming close to collapse. So all this is there, but one point I wanted to make about inflation: when demand is down, then inflation is not really the big worry. Actually at that time deflation starts taking place. So our wholesale prices are declining, whereas the retail prices are rising. And this disjuncture between wholesale prices and retail prices is an issue that we have to worry about, because trade is taking advantage of the thing. Otherwise, because demand is down, the wholesale prices are decreasing, and that's what usually happens when there's a recession or a depression, that all commodity prices begin to fall. And what is happening is that in the case of petroleum goods prices, government has increased the tax so that it can boost its revenue. But otherwise, the petroleum goods prices should have also fallen. But in the present situation, government is so strapped for funds that it sees this as a gold mine. The petroleum prices fall, but that is hurting the consumer. That's hurting the economy. So it's a catch-22 as far as the government is concerned. That it's collecting more, but maybe it should not have been doing this and should have been borrowing rather than increasing the tax on petroleum goods.
So if you talk about the existing loans also, banks I don't think have been forthcoming on that. They have given the moratorium, but after the moratorium, people have to pay taxes, interest on that. So it's like a defaulter. They are not treating it as a moratorium.
No, so moratorium just meant that you didn't have to pay the interest and you didn't have to return the loan.
But if you pay after 3 months, you pay extra tax interest on that.
Of
So
course, you have to pay the interest because the banks say that they have to pay interest to their depositors,
So it's not a
therefore,
moratorium then. It's not a relief for people.
No, moratorium simply means relief for not paying for the 6 months, and the government has to come forward and say, okay, we will pay the interest that is due or the extra amount that is due, so that the banks don't collapse. Otherwise, the banks will start collapsing. So again, the government will have to borrow money to pay to the banks what the borrowers are not able to pay. So that's why I said, it's a very sensitive matter, because if your businesses fail, then your banks also begin to fail. And the only way out is that RBI, changes the definition of bankruptcy, and the government starts giving funds to the banks for where the businesses are not able to pay interest and loans. So this is part of the kind of package that would be required.
So as you rightly said, government has to take lead in everything. Now you must have heard about you know about this fight between states and center over GST.
Correct.
So how do you see that?
So, it is the obligation of the center, and the center can borrow more easily. The states can't borrow, and even if they borrow, they'll be at a much higher interest rate. So the obligation is on the part of the center to pay the states for the shortfall that is taking place in GST. And I think the GST collections ultimately will be about half of what they were last year. So the compensation cess fund will not be able to compensate enough, and therefore the government will have to dig into, borrowing to be able to repay, to be able to pay the states. But there is no option but for the center to borrow and pay the states.
So we are running out of time. One last question to Dr. Ravi Singh. I may ask you the same question. How do you see the fight over GST between center and the states?
Yeah, definitely. There is a lot of decrease in a revenue, government revenue. So the government is in a very panic situation, because they are not getting the revenue. But I hope if they want to increase our economy or boost our economy, then 2 or 3 the major points I want to highlight. First is at least immediately cut on reducing the tax and cess and fuel the prices. Number 1. Number 2, the back-end positions of the government sections, and at least they fill, and most relaxation from the MSME sectors and ease of doing business. And losing the GST is the one of the maybe that in this point you can lose your GST collection, but economy, once economy will boost, then definitely your GST collection will increase, and economy will also survive.
So we are up for challenging times, and the government has to take the lead and address this situation. Thank you both of you for participating in this debate, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is all in the agenda today. Thanks for watching. I will be back with another important topic tomorrow. Till then, goodbye.